And we're back. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my guest, Sam Himmelstein. So you were making some very good points previously in the last segment, and I want to just highlight those a little bit because I see even more lately it being the backbone of business and growing whatever it is you're doing. And again, you've always been a huge inspiration because you've always had people at the forefront of what you're doing. You've done okay for yourself, like you own your home and all the great stuff that people want, but you really put people first. And you were talking about that previously, where you were doing all this volunteer work and it turned into so much reciprocal business for you as an associate. Your partners were forced to make you a partner, and it probably wasn't a quick process either, right? I mean,
well, I joined the firm in late '83, and I became a partner in '86, so right. About 3 years.
So it's not overnight success.
No.
And I think that's a very good lesson and takeaway from the show today is that it does take time to grow. You have to be patient, and you definitely have to put people first, no matter what your service or product is. If you're just thinking about yourself, it's a very short-term goal.
Right.
Did you have a goal of being a partner, or were you just like, I just want to get in here and do this?
I thought to myself, I'd like to be a partner. Yeah. But I never had I didn't think it would grow the way it grew, right? From a 3-lawyer firm to a 10-lawyer firm, right?
And I've heard that from like some very successful people that I follow and listen to these days. And it seems to be the kind of culture, hopefully, like for me, I feel like we're kindred spirits in that I'm always concerned about people. I always want people to have a great time and feel good, which is why I've been involved in entertainment and hospitality. It's things that I love, but I really love to see the smile on people's faces.
And you do a great job of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's really the big payoff for me is seeing that. I mean, I want to make a living at it and be able to provide for my family and have a little fun.
Yeah.
And so on. But I grew up in an era where, and under certain teachers, that it was like, get the money, like fuck everybody else, get the money, like. And now I hear more and more, and it seems like the new generation of workforce is more responsive to it as well, which is great for me because all of a sudden, like one day I woke up and like I was the leader. Like when did this happen? Like who handed me the keys? I was just a guy. I was just a hustler. I was just a hard worker. And then the next thing I know, everybody's looking to me for answers. And I was like, me? You sure?
Yeah.
And it gave me, I was like, well, this is how I think things should be done. And it had to do more with people and less like I love that there's a book by Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last. And that phrase to me, it's like that I just approached it that way. Like you guys, let me set you up. Let me get you going. Like I'll get mine at some point. So I started that with my employees and I was like, oh, like if I do that with everybody, like with customers, with people, with neighbors, like this could be like a really good thing. And it seems to me that's the culture coming up, which is really great.
Yeah.
And I hope that continues. And for yourself and your business, it seems like there's been some recent litigation leaning in that direction too. Legislation, not litigation. Sorry. At least I don't know what any of these big words are. I like to say them because it makes me sound smart.
You were close. You had the right first letter. And you had the shun at the end.
We're gonna get there. So. Give me time, guys. I dropped out of 2 high schools. Okay. So why don't you digress a little bit about that? What's happened lately in terms of like the good things, good culture for people?
So I was at a CLE, a continuing legal education course about the new law recently. In fact, half my partners are at one today. Some of them are teaching it. And they opened it by saying that we've done a little historical checking, and these changes in the law are the single most monumental, revolutionary shift in a state's landlord-tenant laws in the history of the United States. It's never happened this way before. That was such a shift.
Yeah.
One lesson to be learned from this, to all you cynical lefties out there, elections matter. This happened because the Democrats took over the state Senate.
Right.
And we got rid of those corrupt IDC Democrats who caucused with the Republicans.
Right.
So now the Democrats control the state Senate, I think by 14 votes. So the tenant, and then the other lesson is the movement on the ground. So the tenant movement decided to go statewide instead of focusing just on New York and rent stabilization. They organized in Syracuse and Albany in Rochester.
Right. Some of these others, like Rochester, it's like treacherous. That's where my wife's from. And like some of the housing projects and the situation there is dire. The city, the infrastructure has just been like left undone. The highways and such, it's gross.
So the tenant movement organized the whole state, came up with 8 pieces of legislation, 8 bills, 7 of which passed. The only one that didn't pass was one that would have required good cause in every single eviction throughout the state. That was a little bit too much, I think, for people.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But what it did is, I'll try to summarize this really quickly. For us, most significantly in New York, for rent stabilized tenants, there's no more vacancy deregulation. There's no more, you get a tenant out, you raise the rent to a certain amount, you do improvements, that apartment drops out of rent stabilization. Right. That's gone. That system of deregulation resulted, since it passed in the 90s, with the deregulation of hundreds of thousands of rent stabilized apartments. They don't go back in. We tried that, but they wouldn't do that. But they can't take them out. But
existing ones. Right.
So now, because of the revamped formulas for doing renovations and the repeal of the vacancy deregulation, what it comes down to is this: if a landlord gets a tenant out of a rent stabilized apartment now, and it's not a co-op, it's a regular rental, the most they can raise the rent is $89 a month to the next tenant. And that's only if they put in at least $15,000 worth of improvements. If they don't put improvements in, they can't raise the rent at all. The new tenant pays exactly what the old tenant was paying. So it's great for tenants.
Right.
And,
not great for property owners.
Not great for property owners, and maybe not great for landlord-tenant lawyers.
Right.
So this is.
But you're retiring soon, right?
Well, but see, this is the difference between landlord firms and tenant firms. Tenant firms, we identify with our clients, right? It's a cause for us. It's not just a business, right? So the landlord lawyers are all crying because their business is going to fall apart. Because who's going to evict a tenant now if you can only get an $89 a month increase? Right. There's not going to be primary residence cases. They're not going to fight succession stuff. But they're crying and their clients are crying, whereas we are a little concerned about the impact it's going to have on our business, but our clients are like celebrating.
But you're celebrating.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right. It's a victory.
And we participated in it somewhat, and so they're thanking us, But it also changed how fast you have to refund a security deposit. It also changed when a tenant breaks a lease now. The landlord can't just sit there and charge them rent for the rest of the lease. They have to, what's called, mitigate their damages. They have to try to find another tenant.
Right.
And if they don't, they can't sue the tenant for that, right? So it not only affected rent stabilization, it affected these other issues, which is where the Rochester and Albany people benefit. And it also gave every municipality throughout the state the option of opting into rent stabilization. And some of them may.
The whole state.
Yeah, and it goes by municipality.
Right,
so New Paltz is already considering it from what I hear. I imagine Rochester, Syracuse. So we may have rent stabilization spreading. So again, from a marketing perspective, since our eviction defense cases may go down, and that's always been the core of our practice, but because they also changed the formula and the amount you can recover in a rent overcharge case, that's the cases we see that are going to make up for it, so to speak. So tenants can now sue landlords for 6 years of overcharges.
Oh, wow.
They can get triple damages for the full 6 years. Mandatory recovery of attorney's fees, meaning whatever they pay me, they recover from the landlord. So that's where we're trying to get the word out to tenants who think that they're not stabilized, because there are thousands of tenants in New York. Listen to me out there, folks. There are thousands of tenants in New York who think they're not rent stabilized, but they are. And if you go to the DHCR, get your rent history, come to us, we'll analyze it for you. So,
and where can they find information about your law firm? What's the website?
It's hmgdjlaw.com.
And you're down like Maiden Lane, Wall Street.
Maiden Lane, and we have a Facebook page as well.
Check them out on Facebook. Well, Sam, it's been really awesome. I've wanted to do this
very
for so long. This is culmination of like so many good things for me. There's so many things we didn't talk about, but
it was good.
Maybe we'll do it again. So thank you so much. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll check in with you next week. Peace.